All right, ladies and gents, welcome to today's video. My name is Taylor Bentrud, and we're going to go over a client onboarding automation to help you onboard your clients in a better fashion, much quicker and much more efficiently so that you can spend more time working on the business, growing the agency, and your clients will be a lot happier because your onboarding process is a lot smoother, okay? When I say automation, I do not mean that everything is push button done. That's nearly impossible in a people-centric company, a people-oriented company like an agency where you provide a done-for-you service. But it is as good as it's gonna get, at least for a version 1.0. So a lot of people wanted this on Facebook. I think over 63 people commented saying they would love to see this automation. On YouTube, 20 people, 40 people liked it. Like over 100 people liked, and nearly over almost 100 people commented as well. I didn't expect you guys were gonna wanna see it that bad, so great. There's 3 zaps that we're gonna go over. There is a PPC partnership agreement automation. There's a PPC contract signed, which is very simple. And then this is the big one, which is 22 steps long, the AE VA onboarding task assignment automation, this is the primary thing, but they all tie together. So here's kind of the whole system in Lucidchart. Before I go into building a system, I like to build it out and map it out in Lucidchart. So before I just try to dive in the weeds in Zapier, I like to map out what is going to be done, what needs to be done. And then once it's mapped out, go into Zapier, go into whatever tool is that can be used to help automate this process and streamline it, and start actually building the automation. So the process here is pretty straightforward. What happens when a prospect requests a partnership agreement from us right now is the sales rep will talk to one of our, basically a general manager, director of client success, and then the director of client success is going to talk to the sales rep and say, hey, what are all the client details? I need all the client details so that I can create this partnership agreement and send it to the client. Super inefficient. There's a lot of inefficiencies within our process of the communication between the sales rep and the person who's going to create the contract. And so this was the first thing that we basically streamlined. And to do that, it was very simple. All we did was we created this PPC partnership survey, which then feeds the data into this Google Sheet. And then the Zapier automation picks up this information and pushes it directly into PandaDoc and automatically creates a partnership agreement for that specific client. So this was a beautiful automation that saved a lot of time in terms of communication back and forth and just manual clicking around, creating a contract. I'm sure you probably know what that's like when you have to create a contract with a client. Now, I know this is all pretty high level. Don't worry, I'm going to go through this step by step to the best of my ability, but I'm just kind of explaining the high level before we go into the weeds. And before we even go any further, you got to understand that the value of this is so that you don't have to keep clicking and clicking and clicking and doing the same thing over and over and over, and that less things fall through the cracks within your agency. So here is what the survey is. Now, if a sales rep, for example, talks to a client and the client says, great, I want to work with you. We're agreeing to $3,500 per month with 3% of ad rev, or whatever the deal structure it is that you have. Great. The sales rep will then get off the phone and come to this survey, and we'll start filling out this information. So let's say that I'm the person who actually closed this deal. Let's actually go to preview, and we're going to fill it out. This is going to be a long video, by the way. You might want to put it on 2x speed. I might even speed it up because it's pretty hefty, but it's going to be a lot of explaining. So I'm the one who closed it. What's the date? Today's date is 18th. Who's the client? Let's say that the client is, let me think of a cool name, Apple. That'd be amazing to sign them. The client's last name is Cook. His first name is Tim. And let's see, the client email is tim@apple.com. Client legal business address, let's just say California. Test address. Brand name is Apple. Notice how it says brand names. It's because some of our clients have multiple brand names, so you can do multiple brand names if you want. Pretty simple. Start date, we're going to fill this out. Now, all this information ties into the contract that we are going to be sending them. There's 3 contract types that we have. If you've been following the YouTube channel for some time, you'll know that there's really only 3 ways that we will bill clients, and this is for our core service. This doesn't include something we recently started offering, which is called DSP, but it's ad rev only, ad rev plus retainer, or retainer only. This is your classic flat fee. This is a flat fee with a percentage of advertising revenue. This is just advertising revenue. So we're going to say that it is a hybrid model, ad rev plus retainer. And we're going to say the deal structure here is $10,000 per month plus 4% of advertising revenue generated by Better AMS campaigns. Okay, very simple. Retainer amount, if there is no retainer, you don't need to insert this, but in this case, we do have a retainer amount, so we're going to insert it. And notice how the description here says that it specifically says how you need to enter it. This is because when it goes into the database, which is just a Google Sheet, and it goes into Zapier, it needs to be kind of laid out in this way with the comma and the money sign. The ad rev percentage is 4%. The marketplaces that we're going to manage, this is basically just the country of Amazon advertising that we're going to manage. Target ACoS, you don't really need to understand what this is. It stands for advertising cost of sale. It's similar to ROAS, which is return on ad spend. And let's see what we got. Legal business name is Apple HQ, let's just say. And we got this done. So now we're going to submit this. Okay, cool, that's done. That's going to show up here. You're going to see that pop in right here, all that information. That's great. And now what we're going to do, let's see. Now that that is actually submitted, what's going to happen is that this automation, let me see, would actually run. So PPC partnership agreement automation, new response. So the trigger of this first zap is this automation, right? Is when someone submits that form. Okay. So new response from Better AMS PPC partnership agreement request. Again, that's this survey right here. All right. So the trigger of this zap is what I just did. I just triggered it. Now Zapier runs every 5 minutes. So it's not instantaneous that this thing is going to run. But what's going to happen when this runs, and I'll run it here in a second, is it's going to create a task within Asana. Asana is our project management tool that we recently started using the last 3 to 6 months. Could be 3 months, could be 6 months. This year is such a blur because of COVID. But that is the tool that we're using. So it's going to show up in here. But let me just actually click run on this automation, and you'll see what happens. And then I'll explain it after. So PPC partnership agreement. Let's run this beast. You gotta love Zapier. I know there's some people who commented on the Facebook post and they were telling me that like there's a tool that's even better that does way more stuff. Maybe I'll get there one day. I appreciate your guys' suggestions in trying to give me better tools to build automations with. But Zapier, I'm pretty new to it, so I'm definitely not an expert. Okay. So what we're going to see is this thing's going to pop up in Asana, send partnership agreement to Apple, right? This is assigned to our director of client success slash general manager. I mean, generally speaking, director of client success won't really be dealing with client contracts or anything like that, but Alex does a lot within the agency, so it'd be fair to say GM is also a role of his. But who is closing this deal? Taylor Bentrud. See, this is all the survey information. So all the survey information pushes into this Asana card, which is beautiful. Let's come back to Zapier here. So what happened here is the trigger happened where there was new information in the database. Okay. Now this would have happened automatically, but I don't want to wait 4 minutes. So we manually clicked run. And then it is going to essentially create a task into the Asana sales contracts board in progress. This is now a task. It needs to be done today. Again, all of this stuff is customized within this Zap. And then what happened is it actually created a document within PandaDoc, which let's go to right now. I'm going to need to blur out some of the stuff that is here. And let me pause this video. Someone is knocking on the door. So here's the contract. If we click into this contract, you're going to get to see what a typical partnership agreement looks like here. But a lot of the information is also filled out. Give me 1 sec. Let me pause. Sorry, someone was at the door. So all the information that was put into that survey will automatically go into the different blanks or custom fields or variables here within PandaDoc. And all that really needs to be done by whoever's coming in here is sign the contract and send it off to the client. So just review it, sign it, send it to the client, and we're done. So that's very beautiful, because what we used to do is manually input all this information, and we also used to, like, there was two people who had to go back and forth to get the information. Now it's just all on the sales rep to just fill out the survey, and the contract will automatically be created, which is a beautiful thing. It's funny how many small things there are in the agency just like this, which could be automated. So yes. Now let's go more into the specifics, because I know that you're probably wondering, well, how did this actually get done? So let's click into the Zap and look at things and kind of go through things step by step. So here we have the new response from the agreement request. This is the trigger. Now you just have the spreadsheet URL. This is kind of the end of the URL and the worksheet. Then we created the task within Asana, very simple. That pulls in the data from the spreadsheet or from the database ultimately, but really it pulls it from the survey. What's beautiful about Zapier is that with every previous step, the information is stored. So you can pull this information from the survey into this step of the Zap, which is nice. So we have all of this is the Asana card that got built out, right? So the name of this Asana card is Send Partnership Agreement to, and then the brand name. And that's very simple. Now, if we come in here, we're going to see this is all of that information. Very simple. Moving forward, the due date, the assignee. This is interesting. Maybe we'll get into how this was done. And then the assignee status. So that is that step. Then we have this where it looks up the spreadsheet row. Basically finds the data within the database. So it looks up this spreadsheet row right here, the one that was submitted. And what is happening here is we're simply just looking it up so that we can call upon this data. I don't know how else to really explain this, but you're looking up a certain spreadsheet row within the database, which is the row that was the most recent row that was submitted through the form. And the reason why we're doing that is because in the next step, I want to add in some information into this row. The information that I want to add into this database was the Asana task ID and the PandaDoc document ID, which is used in the coming Zaps. So you'll see this Asana task ID, and looks like PandaDoc document ID isn't put in here. Let's see where that is done. Maybe that's the next one. Yeah, that's probably coming in the next one. So first it just puts in the Asana task ID, and then we move into this. So this is a conditional one where if in that survey we selected the contract, ad rev only, ad rev plus retainer, it's going to go to the one which was selected. So this is the one we selected, was number 2 here. And what we're going to see is that contract type, exact partnership agreement. So every single partnership agreement in PandaDoc is consistent. The nomenclature is consistent, which allows us to filter it in this way. Again, we're so in the weeds here that, like, part of me is just like, oh my God, I hope I don't lose people. But I've probably already lost a lot of you guys. So if you're still sticking with me, I'm just like, amazing. That's fantastic. But explaining this, I almost feel like doesn't do any justice. If you want to learn this stuff, you just need to freaking find the bottleneck or the tedious thing in your agency and just set aside a day to play around in Zapier and learn how to do it. I think it's quite fun. Naturally speaking, I'm a builder. I like to build things. So I enjoy this process of building and figuring out things and learning things. But that's really the best way to learn this and understand this. Watching this video isn't really going to do you a whole lot of justice, okay? How I learned to do this was to simply do it. It's just really is no other way. But if this is the contract type, which it is, then it's going to create the document in PandaDoc. That's very simple. So it's going to create the document name. The document name is simply partnership agreement dash whatever the name of the brand is. And then the template that we're going to create, we have a template in PandaDoc. Sending the document, no. You can automatically send this document to the client if you want, but I like to have a double check done where the general manager / director of customer success will review the contract before it actually gets sent out, just in case there's errors. And this is all the information from the survey. So, and this is custom information here because this is going to stay the same. So pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Really, there's not a whole lot of else that I need to show you. This is all very simple. Now, the last thing we have is we add the contract ID into that spreadsheet. This ties into future Zaps, which we're going to get into. But the contract ID is within PandaDoc. Every contract has a unique ID. It's kind of like a barcode. And I wanted to have that in the partnership agreement database just in case, for whatever reason, we needed a Zap that would utilize this kind of information, which we do have. So coming back, that's the end of that Zap. Very simple, not too complicated. Automates the PPC partnership agreement, the contract creation process and the communication between sales reps and whoever's creating the contract. Beautiful. So the next kind of bottleneck we had in our agency is when that contract gets signed and we're actually supposed to go in and do the work. We had a digital brain, a process for starting to actually do the work. This is our digital brain. I've talked about the digital brains before. It's essentially what your agency does, but listed out into a simple one-pager. And if you click on any of these specific boxes, there'll be a video or it'll take you to a specific SOP on how to do that process. And this is great starting out when you're kind of like, it's just you, there's maybe a couple team members, and you really need to get what is in your head onto paper. So if you want to learn about the digital brain, you can just search my YouTube channel. You can search digital brain, and I think there's videos. There's a whole webinar I did on it. I might have posted the webinar. But we had the digital brain, but we didn't really have it integrated into Asana. And so ultimately what this Zap is doing, the next step, is just creating those initial deliverables that need to get done during the onboarding phase of working with the client within Asana, because Asana is our project management tool. We're going to be using that to track kind of, what needs to get done, when it's getting done, and the deadlines for those specific deliverables. So what happens with us is each of these little, I forget what this shape is called, but each of these shapes here represents a task that needs to get done. Essentially, this is a deliverable, okay? And let me show you. First, let's go through this Zap. Once the client actually signs that document, what's going to happen is it's going to send a Slack message. It's going to send a channel message into Slack notifying us that, like, hey, check this out. The survey has been completed. Cool. Then it's basically, we're going to go in and we're going to actually sign the document if we haven't already signed it, but normally we would have signed it. This just lets us know that, great, the client has signed and we are officially good to go. What happened previously is sometimes the client would sign the document, we would find out 12 or 24 hours later, or because PandaDoc has notifications, but they send them via email. If you don't check your email, when I was doing this, I didn't check my email that often. I always have Slack on. I always check Slack every single day, probably every single couple hours. But so that just notifies that a contract has been signed, right? The client is ready to go. Great. Once that contract is signed, what is said in that Slack message? Let me come back here. The Slack message basically has a call to action in it, and it states the following. You need to go to this specific onboarding survey right here, and basically this is the form used to automatically assign the AE and VA the onboarding tasks in Asana to prevent communication wall drops and increase throughput. So this is, once a client is signed, you put in the PandaDoc document ID, which is going to be inside that Slack message. Then the person who, usually this is Destiny, because Destiny is the one who closes a lot of deals within the agency. Destiny will assign this account to one of our account executives or account managers. And then she's also going to assign a virtual assistant that's going to be working on that account with the account executive or the account manager. This is a process that was done very manually, and it was just like Slack message to John. Hey, John, this is a new client that we signed. You're going to be taking on this client. Hey, Sarah, you're going to be working with John on this client account. There was, again, communication. There was just communication between the people. Now, this doesn't remove the communication completely. It just helps streamline it a lot easier. And so then there's an audit sales increase forecast. When we go through our sales process with clients, we tell them that we can increase their sales by a certain amount. Not all the time, but usually, because we have a tool that allows us to kind of forecast what we'll be able to increase their sales by. So once this is submitted, and I'm going to go ahead and probably submit this. I think I'm going to pause this real quick. I'm going to have to sign this contract and then actually go through this process with you. All right, so I'm just signing this fake document here and I'm going to activate the automation. Cool. Manually run the PPC contract signed Zap here so that we can send this Slack message and we can start running. Why isn't it? Interesting. Seems that this one cannot be manually run. Now we have the Slack message showing up from the onboarding bot. Again, this is part of the Zap that I was showing you previously. I'm going to do my best to blur out a lot of stuff here because, and I really don't want to ever make a video like this again because, dear Lord, if the amount of stuff that I got to blur out in this video is going to be insane. But this is the document ID. Great. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to then go to this survey. And here's the survey here, the Better AMS partnership. Nope, where is it? Right here, the AEVA onboarding selection. There's the document ID. That is not the document ID. Hold on. Let me go grab the document ID. This is the document ID. Great. Now, who's going to be managing this account? I'm just going to say hypothetically, it is going to be Alex. And then the VA is going to be Lee. And I'm just going to say the audit sales increase forecast for this was we're going to be able to increase their sales over $150,000 per month. I mean, it's Apple. Apple's pretty big. Increase in sales by around month 2 to 3, and expected ACOS is around, let's just say 10%. Okay, great. So we're going to submit this, and voila. What is now going to happen is we're going to enter the third Zap, which is the big /final Zap that everyone was kind of like, oh my God, I want to see that 23 steps. But it's really not that many steps. So let's go into the Zaps here. This is the AEVA onboarding. So what just happened is we submitted that survey. Now this is the trigger for this Zap, okay? The trigger for the Zap is when someone submits a survey from that survey. Notice the nomenclature in Zapier. It's very important that you make sure that the nomenclature is clean. For example, the name of this trigger is the exact name of the survey. So it's very obvious what's going on here. Nomenclature is so important, not just in your advertising campaigns, but also in your Zapier automations and also in the systems and processes you build. And it's very crucial for allowing you to come back to your systems 2, 3, 4 months later or years later and understand what is going on and what it ties into. So very simple fundamental tip there. Let's run this thing manually and you'll get to see what it does. Essentially what it does is it creates a giant Asana card with a ton of subtasks. So it's going to pick up that PandaDoc ID and the submission, the form that was submitted when we submitted it. So I'm actually going to show you what it's doing live right now. What it is doing live is it created this Asana card, and now it pushed all the information of this deal into the description. And now what it's doing is it's creating the subtasks. Okay, see how these subtasks are starting to populate? That's because the Zapier is running. So if we look at this, this thing is running. And notice these are subtasks within the task itself that are being created right now through Zapier. So if we click in here, it's going to show us 3 things that need to get done. Add Apple to our bid management software. Add Apple info into the BA dashboard, that's Better AMS dashboard. Notify Candice, who's our accounting person, to send the invoice to Apple. Great. So all of these subtasks, some of them have subtasks within them. Some of them don't. For example, this one doesn't. And this is a lot of like what goes into our onboarding process. So when we sat down and we thought to ourselves, okay, what does our onboarding process, what do we want it to look like? We kind of formulated this Lucid chart, right? And it was kind of the idea. Cool, we got it in Lucid chart. But really that's not enough, because if you have it in Lucid chart, if it lives in Lucid chart, someone needs to think about it. Someone needs to remember that, like every time a client is signed, someone needs to go here and think, okay, this needs to get done, then this, and this person does that. It's really not that sexy because it lives in a giant flow chart within Lucid chart, which is great, but it's not as good as it could be. And that's why we've introduced Asana, because this allows us to take all this, which looks kind of complex, it's not really that complex, and simplify it into this, which is a single Asana card that has all the subtasks assigned to the proper people automatically through just submitting a survey. And it has the due dates where we can put due dates. For example, this is a closer success check. This is very simple. The person who closed this deal, I think it's 45 days after the deal is closed. We want the person who closed the deal to get a hold of the client, reach out, get on the phone with them, and just make sure everything is going good. Typically, when you pass the baton from your sales rep to your account manager, in most agencies, I'm assuming that's it. You never hear from the sales rep ever again, and the client is more or less just, they never hear from that person again. Even though that person who closed the deal, generally speaking, is the person who built the initial bond between the between the brand, your agency, and the client themselves, right? So that person was kind of the face in the initial process, and we don't want to kill that person, and we want to make sure that person is still alive. So we think that a 45-day success check, pulse check, will be a good thing to have, and every person who closes a deal will need to do that. And I think it's 45 days in, if I'm not mistaken. We could check this here. Yeah, 30 to 45 days. No, it's 90 days in. So after 90 days, the sales rep has a check-in call. These are client touch points after onboarding. We'll have the director of client success, who's Alex, checking on the initial account performance of the intro to the client as POC for any issues. So 30 to 45 days, once we're into the account management, director of client success will come in, reach out to the client, say, hey, I want to make sure everything's going well. I'm the director of client success. Let's try to hop on a call. I want to make sure things are going good in the account with you and John, and John is the account manager, right? And just get some feedback. This is a beautiful thing. You guys are getting a fucking agency university video right now, because there's been a lot of lessons that needed to be learned before these systems were kind of built and put into the agency. But typically what's going to happen is that your client will never really give negative feedback to your account manager. However, if you put that client on the phone with someone else in your agency, like say you, the owner, or your director of client success, and you ask that client, hey, how's it going working with Sarah? Sarah's your account manager. That client may tell you things that he or she would have never told Sarah, just because they don't feel comfortable telling Sarah. But, they'll feel comfortable telling you, so long as, you're not going to go just blatantly, give that terrible feedback to Sarah, but you'll try to communicate it to Sarah in a way that's more positive, etc., whatever. So what's really good is that you get feedback from the clients on how that account manager and how that account executive that's working on the account can actually improve. Maybe the client doesn't like their style of communication. Maybe the client is annoyed that the email response times from your account manager is taking over a week. Maybe the client is annoyed that he asked this person to do something 3 weeks ago and it never got done. These are things that kill the relationship, right? So what you need is you need a buffer. You need, like, not really a buffer, but a checker, like someone that comes in the middle between the client, between the account manager, and is like a mediator that can get the feedback from the client on how to improve the relationship and communicate that to the account executive. Because generally speaking, the things that the client is most pissed off about or is most irritated by generally will not tell the account manager or the account executive. I'm saying generally here because some clients are very ruthless and they'll just say, this, you're doing a terrible job, blah, blah, blah. Other clients are very quiet. They're very nice. They're so nice that they would never want to tell you that you're doing a bad job, or they would never want to tell you that they're mad about this or that. But they will be willing to tell your director of client success. I've noticed this and learned this from firsthand experience. When I hopped on calls with clients, I'd say, how's it going with Sarah? And the client would say, you know what, Sarah's great, but I'm annoyed I'm annoyed of X, Y, and Z. Okay, so super important, and that's why we end up doing this. And then after that 30 to 45 day check-in, we kind of said that we're going to do a 6 months after start repeated biannually, where every 6 months there'll be a check-in. So 30 to 45 days, we have a check-in from the Director of Client Success. I think what we settled on was day 45 within Asana. So if we come into Asana here, we're going to see that the manager onboarding or the success checks here, day 45, day 225, day 405. So we got about a year and a third worth of check-ins that are put into Asana. I could put more, but if Alex gets to day 405 and completes that, he'll just duplicate this task and create another one 180 days out. So that is this Zap. Here it does a bunch of stuff. Do I need to go into details on the rest of our process? Probably not. All of this stuff I'm going to go super in depth on in Agency Enlightened. If you want to check out Agency Enlightened, it's not even available. There's no website. There's nothing you can do. All I can recommend is you just subscribe to the YouTube channel, because I'll announce the website when it's launched. I'll announce Agency Enlightened when it's launched. But this is more or less a chaotic preview to what you would get in Agency Enlightened, which is a lot more structure on how to build these systems and how to and why we do certain things. So that is the Zap in a nutshell. Let me go through the actual Zap so you can kind of see it. Here's the Zap, and here's why it's so many Zaps. Why it's so many Zaps is because you can only create one Asana subtask within one Zap, okay? So that's why you have all these Asana subtasks taking up the majority of these 25 Zaps. In fact, it's probably 90%. In the beginning, all we have here is 4 lookups. This is why little spreadsheet databases are so cool and so important, because in Zapier, you have the ability to look up, for example, a variable within another spreadsheet. And if you match up a variable from, let me just show you what I mean. This is kind of hard to explain. You kind of just got to build it and you'll know what I'm talking about. But we got a submission from this survey. And then what happens is we look up the spreadsheet in the PPC Partnership Contracts database. So PPC Partnership Contracts database, you're never going to see me with this many tabs open, but you are. This is here. Now, what this Zap is doing is it's looking up. Let me X out of some tabs here. This is getting insane. What this Zap is doing, it's looking for the PandaDoc document ID. Okay, great. So it's looking for that ID, and where it's going to, when it finds that ID, which is actually this right here. Now it's not showing you the correct one because this is from a previous test that I did, but it would show you the correct one, which would be this one. Once it finds that, like if I was to run this Zap, what happens is once it finds this one little variable here, you can now utilize all the information in this row for future Zaps. It's really cool. So that is the power of these lookup, Google Sheet lookups in Zaps. It's one of the most powerful Zapier features you can do with Google Sheets, in my opinion. I'm sure there's others. I'm not a master of Zapier, but when I discovered this thing, I was like, holy shit, this is amazing. Because if you utilize a Google survey, it's always going to consistently put the information into the next row, the next row, the next row. And if you merge the data from the surveys, if you have like 4 different surveys and every survey has one key variable, you can essentially link up multiple databases with just having one key variable that is shared across every survey. I hope that makes sense. So if in every survey I asked for the beginning question to say, what is this client's email? And there's 4 different surveys tied to information we want to pull from the client that we want to put into 4 different databases. All I need to do is do one lookup spreadsheet row into each database and find the client email. And now I can pull tons of different information from the client. Yes, this is terrible to explain verbally. You just need to learn how to do it. Then we look up information from the rest of our databases here. Now, we needed to create a Asana name and username ID database. It's very simple. It's just the names of all of our team members in Asana with their user ID within Asana. And that way we can actually assign the task to the proper person that was assigned in the survey. If you remember in the survey, we select who's the account executive, who's the virtual assistant, and this automation automatically just assigns all of these tasks to the right people. How is that automatically done? Well, it's because we built a simple little Asana username and name database. Very, very simple. And then we have all the rest of the tasks. So this isn't that complicated. I'm not going to bother going deeper into what our onboarding process looks like. The point of this video is to really show you kind of the automation and a few key parts of how to do this automation for yourself. But at the end of the day, you just need to start doing it. That's the best way that you can learn it. But hopefully this was insightful and this kind of showed you what is actually possible in terms of utilizing Zapier and Google Sheets and Asana and Google Forms and other tools that you might use like PandaDoc. There's so many cool things you can automate. These are just a few examples: the contract creation and the onboarding task creation within your project management tool. These are all things that should be done, in my opinion, and a lot more detail is going to be provided on this process within Agency Enlightened, and a lot more instructions on how to set this up for your own agency and create your own onboarding process that's custom for your agency. I will be definitely putting this through the operations, the week, which talks about the operations in your agency. So, hey, if you found value in this video, dear Lord, just hit the subscribe button. It's the only thing I ask from you guys. There's nothing else. And let me know in the comment section below if you enjoyed this. Hit the like button because it helps boost the freaking algorithm for this video. And yeah, this is our client onboarding automation version 1.0. This is all brand new to me. I'm not an expert in Zapier. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Much love. Hit the subscribe button. Thank you so much. And let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Ciao.